Now, with great pleasure, we welcome Newt Gingrich, friend, mentor, former House Speaker, Fox News contributor. There's a lot we don't know, Newt, and there's some new stuff that we do know. Your early thoughts on the 5-day, shall we say, discussion period between the U.S. and Iran, or Iran intermediaries, or somebody representing Iran?
Larry, my best advice is, keep your hand on your wallet and wait and see what comes out. The Iranians have been at this for a long time against many administrations. They will give ground as slow as they can. They will lie as often as they can. They will cheat whenever they can. And for President Trump to achieve a real breakthrough would be historic, given that they have not broken the Iranian dictatorship. But I think at the same time, the president clearly got the message from the world that finding a way to get the Strait open, finding a way to get oil flowing was vital. And so he's taken steps to achieve that. Now, my view today is that we literally don't know enough to know how this is going to come out. He has far more knowledge than we do. He has much better intelligence than we do. And there are a lot of pretty smart people trying to sort this thing out. The Iranians, of course, are lying. They're clearly talking to us. They're doing it through intermediaries, but they're clearly talking to us. And I think they've got to decide what is the most they have to do in order for the regime to survive, because that's their goal now. They realize that we are right on the edge of breaking the entire dictatorship. And in order to keep the dictatorship alive, they will probably give up a lot more ground than they would have 3 or 4 weeks ago.
One of the things the president said today in the presser at the Palm Beach airport is regime change. I mean, he mentioned, and I think the phrase he used was some kind of regime change. And so I was glad he put that in there. And I was also glad to see him focus on not only the issue of reopening the Strait of Hormuz, but also the money, the oil money, right? I mean, that's their cash crop. That's Iran's cash crop. That's what they use for all the terrorists and all the mischief and all the other horrible, evil things that Iran has been doing. I mean, I think he's on it. I think he's on top of it. I'm sure his representatives are on top of it too. But I'm glad he put that stuff out publicly.
Look, I think the fact is, if we want to, we can close down the Chinese access, which would be of tremendous impact on China. So this notion that somehow the Iranians have the upper hand in the Strait of Hormuz is just profoundly wrong. It's the U.S. Navy, which is just beyond the strait, which has the upper hand. And we can bring a lot more pressure to bear than we have so far. We also can do a lot more damage to the Iranian infrastructure than we have so far. And I suspect that tonight there are teams both in Israel and in America working very hard on targeting and getting prepared, if this does break down, to have an immediate response and to keep taking out more and more elements of the dictatorship. They've suffered enormous losses in their current leadership, and I think they're at risk of having even more losses. So they have a lot to lose going into this, but at the same time, remember, they've been very successful since 1979 at taking on virtually the entire world and surviving. So we can't assume that they're going to roll over and be easy to defeat.
Yeah, got it. Check that. Let's move on. DHS funding, Democrats still holding it up. No signs that they're going to let go. Incredible stories now coming out of so many of America's airports. We talked about the Atlanta airport, Hartsdale, when you were on last week. What's going on? I mean, people are talking about 7 and 8 hours now waiting line because of TSA not getting paid and so forth. So Mr. Trump's going to send in ICE to help out in sort of the non-skilled areas without masks, I might add. He made that very clear. Here's what Democratic House Leader Hakeem Jeffries had to say about this, Newt.
The last thing that the American people need are for untrained ICE agents to be deployed at airports all across the country, potentially to brutalize or in some instances kill them.
So let me get this right. The ICE people going into the airports are just going to kill, ordinary civilian people. This is the Democratic leader of the House, who I might add, whose district is a block or two away from the Democratic leader of the Senate. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, how utterly stupid that is.
Not just stupid. These people are crazy. And when Trump said that in the State of the Union, he was much deeper to a real truth than we've understood. Think about it. The Democrats, as a matter of policy, are trying to make life as miserable as they can for millions of Americans, hoping that they will blame Donald Trump for the misery the Democrats have imposed on them. And I look at people, the Democratic senators around the country, and I have to ask myself, what do they how stupid do they think the American people are? They could tonight go into the Senate, solve this, go back to normal life. But instead, it's pretty clear the Democratic goal here is to make life so totally miserable that people will react against the Republicans. And the Democrats apparently believe that Americans are so stupid, they won't realize who it is who is holding this stuff up. And the people who are holding this up are the Democrats in the Senate, the Democrats in the House, and they're doing it deliberately, hoping that pain will somehow rebound against Republicans. I think it's probably as unpatriotic as anything I've ever seen a major party do.
Last one for you, Newt. Mr. Trump wants the Save America Act, the voting rights reform bill, photo IDs, citizenship. I'm all for it. You're all for it. I'm suggesting, I said it last week, you can call it the Kudlow solution or not, but you're going to have to go to reconciliation. And you're going to have to think outside the box. And I believe money for the Pentagon, $200 billion, and it's going to take a lot of money. I don't know how much, but it's going to take a fair amount of money to enforce national voting rights and citizenship rules, just like it took a lot of money to close the border once the decision was made by the president, and that can go into reconciliation, and it's certainly worth a try. Now, what do you think? I mean, to me, this is the solution. Defense money and a fair voting rights bill that'll keep, American democracy sound.
No, look, I think that's exactly the right direction to go in. I just saw this amazing map that if you look at the states that Kamala Harris carried, virtually every one of them does not require any kind of identity. Whereas if you had to require an identity, the state happened to go for Trump. And I think that tells you a lot. I wrote a column, that Substack recently at Gingrich 360, and I said, and I really believe this. The Democrats believe that they have to be able to steal votes in order to survive. It's much harder to steal votes if everybody has to have an identity in order to vote. And so you see this deep, bitter hostility. Remember, 85% of the country, including a vast majority of Democrats, a vast majority of African Americans, a vast majority of Hispanics, all of them favor voter ID. And it makes you wonder why the Democratic leadership in the Congress is fighting so desperately to stop something that even their own party wants.
Yep, good point. Give a boost to the Kudlow reconciliation. I need a boost. Anyway, Newt Gingrich, thank you.
Right.
Great to see you. Appreciate all your wisdom.